Will President Trump's second term be cataclysmic? That's what former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer thinks. He joins me now live via Zoom. Sean, thanks for taking the time.
Good to see you, Kim.
So you spoke to the New York Times for an opinion piece that caught my eye yesterday, and you used that word, cataclysmic. What did you mean by that?
You know, I think this is going to be earth-shattering in a positive way. The president, you saw that in the first 24 hours, 200 executive actions and orders, a lot to do with the border. He's had 4 years to plan. They came back ready to go on day one. They knew the people that they wanted. You know, internally, they knew the people that they needed to get rid of. They knew the policies that they wanted to act on, and they knew the process by which to make it all happen. Those were things that we weren't able to do in the same way that they did yesterday. Like we didn't have a full grasp. The way that I think this is the reason that this is going to be historic is because, you know, he's had 4 years to think about what he would do if he regained the office, who he'd want surrounding him, and how he'd get it done.
Yeah, how do you think Donald Trump, the person, is different now as we sit here in 2025 versus the man that took the oath of office back in 2017?
I think there's two main differences, Kim. The first is that when you've gone through the process once, you know, I mean, whether it's, you know, playing a sports game or doing a crossword puzzle, or, I mean, anytime that you do something a second time, you think about, oh, here's what I'm going to do instead. Here's the move. I'm going to go this way, not that way. So he's had a lot of time to reflect on that. That's number one. And that there's a whole host of things that leads to. But the second thing that I've really been thinking about is that when you've had two assassination attempts on your life, one of them, you know, millimeters making a difference, I can't help but think that you reflect on your life and your legacy in a way that most people never would. And those two reasons, I think, really change how he's approaching the job this time.
And what about the public perception of the president? I mean, I've seen you talk about how when he was elected back in 2016, it seemed like everyone was against Trump. But now you're saying that you think people are ready for Trump 2.0 this time.
Yeah, I think the big difference this time is that we lived through 4 years of Joe Biden. People felt the effects of inflation every day that they were at the grocery store. They see a world full of chaos under Joe Biden. They see a woke ideology ushered in. And I think it wasn't as much of a hypothetical that normal political race or a campaign develops, meaning it's not hypothetical. Oh, I'll do this. My opponent will do that. We had a really sharp understanding as an electorate about the choice that we could make. And so, you know, so many people have now realized why it's important, for example, to secure the border, how far the woke ideological policies of this past administration went. And you're seeing groups of folks. I've been walking around Washington, D.C. the past few days during the inauguration, and it is just a very, very, very different feeling than it was 8 years ago. But even in the lead up to the election, Kim, back in Rhode Island this summer, I had people who had said, you know, I wasn't with you guys 8 years ago. We really need change. We need to get back to common sense. So I could feel this and sense this in the lead up to the election. And what you saw in the past 24 hours is President Trump acting on those promises that he made to the American people.
And Sean, we've got about 30 seconds left. Hard to believe, but it was 8 years ago today that you took to the White House podium to talk about the size of President Trump's inaugural crowd. He has a brand new press secretary stepping into that role, the youngest in history, Caroline Leavitt. What advice do you have for her?
I've shared with her several pieces of advice. I would just say the one thing that I've been very public about is that, you know, the more you check in with the president, the better. He is very particular about how he wants his policies and announcements to be made. And so stay in close contact with him and double check before you go out there. As you recall, Kim, that next press conference, I was smart enough to involve a lot of local reporters to get their perspective on issues that affected various other places around Washington, D.C. that didn't get the attention in the White House briefing room, including you and the folks in Rhode Island brought you into the briefing room. And so I tend to focus on the second day.
Yeah, do you think the White House Skype seats will be making a return, maybe Zoom seats?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been advocating for that, and I know Caroline's going to make her own sort of unique impression on the briefing and how she handles it. We'll see where she goes, but she I think welcomes the approach of being more welcoming. Karine Jean-Pierre locked out 400 journalists, taking away their hard passes. I think Caroline's going to be much more inclusive and find her own way of showing that.
We will stay tuned. Former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, thanks so much for being here.
You bet.